Welcome back to Just Blazor Programming. Yes, we're going to be discussing whether or not Blazor is trash. Is Blazor trash? Do I think Blazor is trash? Well, I made a whole channel devoted to it, so I have to kind of be a simp for it. But I think Blazor does have a lot of problems still. I believe there are some major criticisms, including but not limited to how do you find jobs with Blazor? Are there even enough jobs? What about all the rendering issues does it have? You know, when it actually tries to have JavaScript libraries incorporated into it, all the problems you run into there. Not only that, but why is the community so teeny weeny? These problems and more, or probably just these three that I'm going to focus on, are going to be the crux of this video. So we'll address them. And, you know, we're going to take a hard look at it, get down to those brass tacks, and make sure that we evaluate this technology very carefully, because I am biased. So what this video is going to be focusing on are the three main complaints when it comes to Blazor. One of them is the job market, one of them is the community, and one of them is the technology itself when it comes to rendering things. We'll get to that one last. Today, I'm going to go with the job market first. I think it's about time in one of these videos anyway, so we're going to wrap it all up into this. So, as you can see here, I have a React post. This React post has 29,000 jobs on Indeed. If I did the same thing with Blazor, you only get 360 jobs on Indeed, 49 jobs on ZipRecruiter, and LinkedIn, sporting the most amount of Blazor keywords in their jobs, has 21,000. So comparable to that of the Indeed one for React. But it does still mean that when it comes to the major job hunting sites and stuff, Blazor is still a bit of a minority, because Blazor, I think it has to do with two things. Number one, there's a lot of old C# legacy stuff that are still needed. So people that are using Razor, let's say, if I instead of looking for Blazor, I look for Razor, I'll probably find a lot more jobs. What? 32? No, wait, no, it's ASP.NET MVC. That's there. Okay, here we go. 3,747 jobs for ASP.NET MVC, which is related to Razor, basically. If we look for ASP.NET Solo, we'll get a lot more. We'll probably get either more. Yeah, we got 8,504 jobs. And then if we go to ASP.NET Core, which is where Blazor is an ASP.NET Core framework, you'll get 3,417 jobs on Indeed. Now, this is just off this one site. And you clearly saw that in LinkedIn. There's quite a bit of results when it comes to Blazor in the US specifically. But Blazor is still a minority player compared to React, especially when it comes to at least here. If I went and looked for React instead, I'll probably get way more than 21,000. I'll get 80,000. So that is still a thing. And I believe that part of the reason is because it's, number one, it's too new. 2018, that's when it came out. React has been out for 10 years plus, I think. Same with Angular. So they've been really established programming languages here. Or, yeah, in frameworks. So there's going to be more jobs for them, obviously. They're just way more entrenched. Not only that, but Blazor is also competing with the existing Microsoft stacks that are around, like WCF, like, you know, Razor from the past, and other stuff too. Just things that have to do with C#, VB.NET, those kinds of things. So Blazor has competition not only from non-Microsoft sources, but also Microsoft sources for one reason or another, because those came first. So Blazor, unfortunately, is just catching up. But it does seem to be that compared to last year, there's a lot more jobs now for Blazor specific keywords in those jobs. So that's a good thing. That means that the community is growing. Speaking of that community, if we go to, so when I talk about community, I mean the amount of people who use .NET, you know, .NET developers specifically. According to Microsoft, there are around 5 million .NET developers around the world. I don't know if that's true or not, considering that, you know, Microsoft has an interest to inflate these numbers as best as it can. And the more research I've done, the harder it gets to find, you know, good numbers. And it's really hard to aggregate how many people there are. So instead, I've decided to take a different approach in how to, you know, talk about the community of .NET developers specifically, and that is through Stack Overflow. So in Stack Overflow, this is one of these surveys that they had. This specific one was from 2022, and this talked about when professional developers were asked about what technologies they were using, or what frameworks and technologies they were using. In this case, what I cared about are all the .NET technologies here. Blazor specifically is at 5%. ASP.NET Core and ASP.NET 16.1, 20.71. So there were 3 categories in here that were basically .NET. And there might be some more here, but I didn't really check. But as you can see, the biggest one is going to be Node.js. Node.js is React and Angular specifically. jQuery, it's its own thing, blah, blah, blah. So what do we get from this? ASP.NET developers at the very minimum. There are a bunch of them. There are a lot of them. That's pretty good. But not a lot of them are using Blazor right now. 5% of it. Or at least they don't consider themselves to be Blazor developers. That's not a good or bad thing, because I think the more accurate way of seeing this is that you are using ASP.NET Core. You are using the suite of .NET within your Blazor application. So it technically would be more apt for you to say that you are an ASP.NET Core developer, and Blazor is just one of the tools in your tool belt among other tools that you have. And so that is how I view it. It's kind of the same issue with the jobs thing, where when you're looking for jobs, ASP.NET, .NET, ASP.NET Core, Blazor, these can be all within the keywords, or one of them could be in the keywords. It doesn't necessarily have to be Blazor specific. However, I do think that that would compare just Blazor by itself, comparing it to other frameworks by themselves like Angular and React.js, is obviously being blown out of the water here. So that is, that's what it is. What it is. Blazor, it is a much smaller community, it seems, than React or Angular. Again, this has to do with time. This has to do with the fact that Microsoft has a lot of technologies that are under the umbrella of ASP.NET, ASP.NET Core, .NET, all that stuff. Blazor is just a part of it. So, as niche as it is, we're gonna go to another thing, which maybe will redeem it a little bit. In that survey, this is for 2021. Should have gone for the other one. But at least in the 2021 survey, .NET Core and .NET 5 in that case were one of the more loved, whatever that means, frameworks. And C# was also here. No, it's not. Just .NET 5 and .NET Framework here. .NET 5 is where Blazor came from, by the way. So I don't suspect these numbers have changed very much for the next year. In fact, I was looking for numbers, and I don't think this is true, because I think that 307,000, maybe that's in the US. I'm not really sure, but I do know that typically it's the same problem that Stack Overflow had, and I'm more willing to believe Stack Overflow over this this website. I was just looking for more information, and I'm probably gonna also take this with a grain of salt. 5 million developers, maybe not. I don't really know. So for Stack Overflow, we'll go by percentages instead of what the community is. Now this is out of 45,000 people, so you have about. In this case, it is kind of unfair to lump this all together, because it is 3 different categories versus 1 category for Angular, 1 category for React.js. So instead, we'll just go with the Blazor category here, 5% versus 23 and 44. Now, 5% is not horrible out of 45,000. It does not. It's obviously a quarter of Angular, and an eighth of React.js, more or less, or a ninth, my bad. So yeah, what can I say about that? Blazor is a smaller community. That's one of the issues with Blazor. I think Blazor community should be bigger. I think that Blazor should be more adopted within the .NET developers themselves, and it should be something that is much more pushed by Microsoft to be adopted, which comes to my last and final point, and that comes to this over here. So this is the Google Trends for React, Blazor, and Angular. Blazor being in the red down here. So this is the least amount of interest over time compared to React, Blazor, and Angular, at least in the last year up to today. So what I think is a problem here in this case is that Microsoft isn't really doing too much to reach out into the community through content developers or content, content creators, or other ways to advertise that Blazor has Blazor is something that is viable and that could be used and should be used for your web application technologies. I think that when it comes to the actual individual developers, like the Microsoft.NET channel and all that stuff, they're doing what they can, including that Blazor United video that I made. That all that information came from one of the developers there, who put it on his channel about Blazor United. So you should check that out if you want to check out Blazor United. But I think they should be doing more. I think they should be cultivating more content creators into their network in order and support them in order to get the word out for their technologies. Because if they're already under the umbrella of Microsoft, then they should try to go out of their way and actually try to advertise that their technologies are there for other people. There are really big people in the .NET space right now. This is just a small sliver of that big community I was talking about, but I'm just going to put some people that are in either the Blazor space or in the .NET space, including this guy, Patrick God, 37.3k subscribers. We have .NET itself, .NET the channel, 217k subscribers. I am Tim Corey, probably the biggest one here is 359k subscribers. Nick Chapsas, 179k subscribers. It's pretty decent subscriber count, but the community still feels pretty small. Especially with Blazor. Blazor's pretty still niche, which is why I started my channel, to capitalize on that niche. But there is still I think there's still room to grow here. And I do think Microsoft plays a role in it, and Microsoft should do more, especially when it comes to creating content. Now, in this case, they kind of sort of did it, but this unfortunately only really looks like it's for blogs and stuff, like for reading. Because look, it says here, Microsoft start matching your content with interested readers. It's some sort of content program that they have here, but this is really for blogs and stuff, and they haven't really looked like they got into the actual YouTube space where I think most people get their information from. You guys are getting your information from me off YouTube. I don't have a single blog out there to my name, and I'm probably getting people watching my stuff at a decent enough clip, I guess, even though I am a very tiny channel. But yeah, I just don't think that blogs are enough to really propel the technology that you want to advertise. You know, the more people that use the technology that we're using, the better it is for all of us. Especially when companies start adopting them, more job positions for those technologies that you've already learned, so that the investment that you have in there is going the distance, etc., etc. Having a bigger community of people who know this technology is not a bad thing. On the contrary, it's a good thing, because that means that more companies will be willing to adopt them and will be dipping into that pool of people. That's in my opinion, that is. You're better off joining a big community and, you know, getting those jobs and stuff than you are joining a very tiny one that's very niche, which is what we've seen with the Blazor jobs and stuff like that. Although they are growing, it's still small compared to Angular and React, you know? So I do think that Microsoft should play a role in Blazor. Now, for the fun bit, the technical argument against Blazor, the technical argument where I think Blazor needs improvements on. So as you can see, the biggest problem when it comes to dealing with JavaScript libraries, a bunch of libraries that you use, or a lot of libraries that you're probably used to seeing and also incorporating into your projects, are JavaScript libraries. There's no way around it. JavaScript has just been here forever, and not tapping into any of those libraries is unfeasible, honestly. You need these libraries at some point in time, and they're probably going to interact with your Blazor application. Now, the way around it is using JS interrupts, which I made a video about it if you feel like learning how to do that. But the problem is still here. The problem being that JavaScript and Blazor don't technically talk to each other. The only way they do that is through the JS interrupt. And even then, you might have some issues with rendering. So I'm just going to show you a little example of what might be a possible situation of a project that I was trying to make. So yeah, here, I'll just give it to you right here. This particular project is a tutorial I wanted to create, but I found it having issues. So I wanted to create a game with Blazor. I want to see if it was possible. You can create games with React or Angular, but with Blazor, it seems to have a very big problem when it comes to sprites. So if you don't know what a sprite is, it's basically a bunch of little has a bunch of images that you make in order to side by side in order to make it look like it's moving. You'll see what I mean once I play it. So in this case, I didn't bother putting this in the oh, I did it right here. Here you go. Whoop! You saw that guy? You saw him run across the screen? Let's do it again. Go here. Whoop! It's all good. It looks like the dude is doing his thing. My thing was only supposed to make this dude animate like this. So it's animating a little bit. There is a bit of JavaScript running around there. So it's not following the rules too much when it comes to the JS interrupt stuff, but it seems to be working until I decide to refresh the page. And that's when I run into this problem. So in this case, I have a JS interrupt happening basically. or not JSON. I have something that's incorporating some JavaScript here. I forgot what I was doing really, but in this case, I have a null reference exception, all because I decided to refresh my image. Now, this could be some JavaScript error. This could be a Blazor error. Unfortunately, because these two don't play with each other correctly, it's really difficult to diagnose this. There is JavaScript running around here. Here we go. I have some custom JS in order to deal with the sprite. But yeah, but this doesn't play well with Blazor, and this is essentially a very extreme version of the problem that you will encounter with Blazor and the problems that I encounter with it, and why it's really difficult to make a game like this. Even though like a simple game of a guy running around and jumping and whatever, it requires a bit more effort and requires a lot more work on your part in order to make the Blazor components and the JS components that you'll inevitably need work together, which is why in my Blazor animation tutorial I used a specific library in order to do it, because that library relied mostly on CSS conventions and the just those style sheets instead of actually JavaScript. There is some JavaScript running around there, but for the most part, it's all CSS, which is why it was easy to incorporate that into Blazor, because CSS does not have the same issues that JavaScript does when it comes to rendering on Blazor. So this is basically what I think is one of the bigger problems with Blazor. Sure, we could talk about Blazor WebAssembly loading issue, but everybody knows that. Everybody knows it has that problem. Blazor server also has that issue with the connections. And Blazor United, in theory, you're supposed to solve this by marrying the two and taking the best of both worlds. In theory, if that doesn't happen, then we can go back and make another video on that. But I'm just gonna say that it's been talked to death already, and this is just probably the one thing that I didn't mention in any of my videos, is the actual rendering issue when it comes to interacting with JavaScript. So yeah, this is still a problem, and it's probably gonna be a problem until until more Blazor libraries are out there that can accomplish similar things that JavaScript ones can, or if there's an easier way to incorporate JavaScript into Blazor, or have Blazor somehow be able to detect JavaScript better than it has right now, because this is kind of annoying. Now, I know that this problem could be either on my end, my own coding and whatever, that could be an issue, and then I need to look into it more. But I do understand that there is the problem is really difficult to diagnose when it comes to trying to get these libraries to play with each other nicely, if they haven't already been sufficiently, JS interrupted, sufficiently married with each other. So having a thing like this, sprite-based animation that requires JavaScript in order to do the, I'm gonna get a little technical here. Do the whole byte array swapping or whatever. Like I have a byte array here. They also have the images. The images are moving through in a list, something like that. So that is having an issue when you restart the page, not when you just go into it, which is why I stopped working on this for now, because I'm like, this is taking too much time. So unfortunately, when it comes to those kinds of problems, it is what it is, and Blazor is going to continue having them. And the ways around them are JS interrupting it as best you can, and then running into problems like this, basically. So is Blazor trash? Well, obviously, as a Blazor channel, a Blazor enthusiast, I'm going to say that no, it's not trash, but it has problems, and I will be the first to submit to you that they have problems. I'll be the first to say it has problems. However, I do think that what you gain in using Blazor versus, dealing with all this stuff is probably better than trying to incorporate probably React or Angular into your .NET framework, instead of just having this very, seamless C# from front end to back. And I think that is worth, that's probably worth having, in my opinion, because I don't believe that this is a situation, this specific one that I'm having now, is not really something you're going to run into, because if you're going to make a game, use Unity, use Unreal. It's one of those things. If you want to make a game, don't use this. And I wouldn't use React or Angular to make a game either, though. You could theoretically make one, yeah, you can, but it's like they're not meant for that, and you should have the right tools for whatever job it is. And as nice as it would be for Blazor to be universal in the sense that I could make anything I want with it, it's a framework. You have limitations. This is one of those limitations here, for me at least. However, this does illustrate the JavaScript problems in an extreme way. you know, they don't really play nice with each other until you go through the JS interop. However, I have incorporated JavaScript libraries in the past through JS interops. I didn't make that video on the library, just saying this is just an issue with sprite animation through the method I've chosen. So until there is some sort of Blazor component that does this better than I can think of, there's gonna be an issue. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make my little games on Blazor. I have to stick with Unity because that uses C#. Anyways, that's it. Enough of me rambling on. Is Blazor trash? Anyone out? Sure, it's trash. But I'm still gonna use it. I'm still gonna advocate for it because I think that there's a lot of usage out of it when it comes to building web applications. And I do like the fact that I don't have to rely on JavaScript in order to do that anymore. So I think that it has a lot of problems, big problems when it comes to dealing with JavaScript mostly, but it is still growing. There's still interest in it. And there seems to be more interest in it now than there was in the past. So that's a good sign that the community is growing and the technology itself is getting more optimized and better. And hopefully by the time Blazor United comes out, we'll have a nice, you know, true alternative to Angular and React. Whereas .NET developers, we don't have to deal with JavaScript as much at the very minimum. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the video. And if you do, please give me a like and subscribe. Maybe check out this next video here. Maybe sort of. Also, I have a free Blazor cheat sheet for you. I worked out very hard on it, and it's just basically condensing everything that Microsoft Docs would tell you that you might need for your next Blazor project.